And Hoyland has won it. My, oh my, oh my. Not the sort of game that I was expecting. Not the sort of game I was expecting. I was thinking going into this game, look, we lose 2-0 to West Ham, and bro, we're finished. You got Aston Villa at home, who sat right at the top of the end of the table, going to United side, who are just getting bummed out every week. But I tell you what, get to half time, it looks like we are getting bummed again. But then the second half happens. And then it's a different story. Garnacho, man has decided he wants to start scoring goals. I mean, even despite scoring 2 goals in this game, this guy was frustrating. He was frustrating, like no word of a lie. He was absolutely frustrating. Big up Luca. Am I okay? I'm a bit on the come down a bit from feeling hella stressed, watching my team go from 2-0 down to 3-2 up. In the season that we're having against an Aston Villa team that not many teams have actually beaten them this season. Not many teams, so they've actually done pretty well. Well, I mean, we're 8 points behind them, but even so, I mean, if you win a game, I mean, there's not many better, more, say, exhilarating ways to win a game than winning it this way. 2-0 down, it looks like it's done. Ten Hag looks like he's done. But do you know what? A little bit of character in a team can take you a long way. Now, I don't know if it's because Dave Brailsford or Gollum with glasses was sat up in the stands that the message was different or the mood was different, that there was a bit of a, well, we've got to put up a fight here because let's not beat around the bush. A lot of players' careers will very, very quickly be on the line if they disappoint so very early on. So let's be real. There might be an outside interjection of extra fight, of extra desire, of extra desperation to achieve something and actually win games and play well and actually fight for the badge and show a bit of quality. So as much as it was a really good win, it was equally just as frustrating to watch because, my God, how many times do we need to be offside? We had 6 offsides in the first half alone. 6. That's the most offsides in a half of football this season by any team. Man, discipline. Gotta have a bit of discipline in attack, and even with a lack of discipline, because I feel like there's quite a few passing decisions or decisions in front of goal or in the final third in danger areas where the decision making wasn't actually that good. So it could have been more. It should have been more. So do you know what? I think as much as I'm, chuffed with this result, and don't get me wrong, it's a big win. It's a massive win. Hugely important win. We've got a difficult away day to come up next. We're going to the City Ground. The City Ground, Nottingham, and Forest. It'll be more of the same. You've got to be more of the same. Get ready for a fight. Get ready to get your elbows out and dirty. Get your hands bloody. To get your hands dirty. We're gonna be in for a fight against Forest, and this to be 2-0 down to fight to 3-2 back, to go from a losing position and looking almost like 1 goal away from the game just being completely dead and finished, turning around and actually putting a bit of passion into that shirt and doing the badge, a bit of pride. A little bit of pride for the team and the club that you play for don't hurt anybody. And good things tend to come of it when you actually do. So think about when a player of good quality actually puts in all that effort, great things can happen. Got to say, I'm very, very relieved as well that Rasmus Højlund finally, at long, long last, gets his goal to get him off onto the score sheets, onto opening his tally. Finally, 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 finally. But talk to me, people. Talk to me. Let me know what your thoughts on this game were, because I'm very much chuffed to bits that we, though we make it a bit more difficult for ourselves, we got a good result. That's a solid result. Beat Aston Villa, but also beating them from a deficit. It's an impressive way to win a game for a team that is so defeated and so flat with energy and personality and passion. Team that is usually really, really flat. So listen, really solid result today. So I'm happy, and good to see you, Si. Bit more chipper this evening. Absolutely are. Positive Boxing Day at the office. And we win a game against a tough opponent, but we don't just win it, we win it in style. We win it in style, 2-0 down to 3-2 up. Yeti, I'm sorry if you've got a few bits of, flashbacks, trauma than flashbacks to the home game. United 3, Nottingham Forest 2. I apologise on your behalf if that's triggered you some flashbacks, but who cares? Aston Villa are the fall guys this time around, and I've got to be honest, Aston Villa, for as much as it reads 3-2, most times this season we've actually been, we've actually just about scraped by. For me, if we have a slightly more alert defence and a better goalkeeper, a goalkeeper that actually stops shots, that actually commands his box, we probably don't concede those 2 goals. We probably actually stay in that game right up to the halftime whistle. So aside from that, the performance of the team overall was actually very decent. It was actually decent. Really decent team performance. Big up Pop Fuzz. Good comeback for you guys. It is. It is a very good comeback, and it does the team wonders in terms of, having a bit of momentum. But in terms of the way that you win it, you think about, your recent memories. Recent memory will tell you, I was in for a fight, and that was tough. That was really, really tough. And you come away with the positive result, and you look back on it and say, well, actually, that makes me feel really good because my hard work, my effort saw reward. And that's what it should be about, that you walk off that pitch as a Manchester United player, you look back on the game and you feel rewarded. You feel like you've done your job and you've done it well. And that's part and parcel to what being a Manchester United player should be about. But this season, thus far, we haven't really seen much, if any of that at all. And I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, something feels really different tonight. Something feels really, really different tonight." I'm thinking, don't get too ahead of yourselves. Yeah, don't get ahead of yourselves. We beat Nottingham Forest 3-2 at the start of the season, and we've been so up and down ever since. We travel away to Forest next. That's tough. That's a tough away day, and we are going from a home game to an away game, but most importantly, we just play again. And one thing that is very prevalent this season is an inconsistent Manchester United. But yeah, big ups to Early Doors. If you wanted to come on, mate, you're more than welcome to. There's it's an open invitation to the folks in it's an open invitation to the regulars in the chat. If y'all wanted to jump on, you're more than welcome to. Big up Hot Fellas, good game. Glad you won. Arsenal was third in the league at one point. Big ups, Anthony. I'll tell you what, it's tight at the top. You might have been top at Christmas, but you've seen just how quickly Arsenal can go from being top at Christmas to not top come the new year. So yeah, but big ups to you, man. Brailsford was in attendance, so they pulled their socks up. It's one result against a poor Villa. I'm not getting excited. Well, I mean the team of Aston Villa. I mean Unai Emery has gotten some really good results out of Aston Villa. Equally, they have had times where they've dropped a level, and I think tonight they weren't actually that good. They weren't that good by any means. Yeah, both of their goals were completely preventable. So, and that's what I'm saying is, please don't get too ahead of yourselves, because it's all good being really, really happy, overexcited. Oh my God, it's the start of something. Please, let's get to winning against Nottingham Forest, then win the next game, then the next, then the next, then the next. Maybe then I will give you the keys to be more excited, right? But just because there was a bloke sat in the stands with glasses on who represents an impending ownership does not mean that all of a sudden we're going to be this fantastic world-class team. So let's keep an open mind to it. Give me the link, please. You're damn right. You're damn right. Let me find you. There we go. There we go. Sent you the link, Early Doors. I don't think Villa should have been too up, but the fact that they were, I kind of feel like they threw it away. And they did. They did. They absolutely did. Granted, you were a different team tonight, but to be 2 up with a chance to go top, they should have shut the game down. And that's the thing, is game management. And Early Doors, not Early Doors, sorry, Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest, right? The big problem for them when they were 2-0 up is you go 2-0 up in such an early stage in the game, there's a long time there that you've got to think about game management, right? Where you've got to almost set a rhythm and a momentum and lock it for the rest of the game, right? Unless you're going to keep being stubborn and trying to score even more goals, when if momentum switches, you're too open, and you know. And Villa held quite a high line today, so they, to be honest, they didn't manage the game well in the slightest. And whilst that presents an opportunity, at the same time, the team that gets the opportunity has to take it. And despite all of the offsides and frustrations that we had in front of goal today, we actually we got chances and took them. And we took enough chances to win the game. And at the end of the day, what matters most is that we put the ball in the back of the net more times than the opponents, so we win the game. We take 3 points. Happy days. And just whether we do that again up next against Nottingham Forest away is a whole different ball game. But here we are with Early Doors Football TV. How we doing, man?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Yourself? You must be very happy after that comeback.
I'm very relieved, because every time you sit there and you're, say, 3-2 up from a losing position, you're just watching that clock go down. Time seems to get longer and longer and longer with every passing minute, knowing that your club may end up conceding a last-minute goal and it'd be all for nothing. And I tell you what, very relieved. Thank God that it ended the way it did, and thank God that we actually responded in the second half, because it shows that the team, when they want to, can have good character, and then they've got the quality to actually get the ball in the back of the net and to break apart an Aston Villa team that has actually been pretty good for most of the season. They're not sat up towards the top end in the top three at Christmas for no reason. They're like
No, that's right.
they've been a decent
That's right.
they've been a decent team for the first half of the season. So, with that in the back of your mind, you think, well, most of us go into this game, and I see a lot people are saying, well, whilst I think don't get too carried away. It's just one result. We've had this before where we win a game and we go, yay, we're going to jump, hop, and skip into the next game. We get 3 points. And then you just get punched straight in the mouth by a Mike Tyson right hand. Like, for the inconsistencies, don't get too excited, but be happy enough that for a game that a lot of people wrote off and said, well, look, we're just going to get battered. And to be honest, I was one of those people. So that's why I'm relieved, and I'm happy with it. I'm happy with what I've seen. I wasn't expecting it, but I'm happy, and I'll openly say that. Yeah, I'm not going to sit in one camp and just say no. This manager's got bought himself more time. Like, I'm not going to dampen my moods in those respects. I'm going to be happy when we've won a game and won it well, but I'm not going to get carried away with it. Would you say that's a fair assessment on the situation?
Yeah, I'll back up entirely, because I think, if, as you said, to get back into a game like it against a Villa side, I think they were too easy with, first of all, evening Mama Flossie. I think it's the fact that when you look at the fact that to get the early goals that Villa did, and they literally kind of sat back on that, they should have capitalised. A third goal was screaming out for them, and they never kind of showed anything of that. I don't think Ollie Watkins had much of a sniff today. It was more Bailey that had more the game than what he did. And I can see there's obviously saying Anana. Yeah, you can say he's probably at fault for one of them. The second goal, though, then Donker's one. For one, why was I think it was the number 17 clearly come around the back. No one marked him, headed the ball in, and it was an easy tap in with Den Donker when he had around about 4 players around him. So it's poor defending in that respects. The other thing you've got to criticise your guys for the amount of times they was offside.
Yeah, 6 offsides in the first half alone.
In the first half, yeah, exactly. That's
more offsides than any other team in the league this season.
That's poor, and that just shows you where you are. I mean, yeah.
Well,
and that.
It's funny that we say that that's not good enough. At the same time, a few different decisions or choices in the final third when you're not in offside positions. On a different day, perhaps you're in an onside position and convert your chance. That could have been much closer to a cricket score.
Yes.
So it's like, even then, with a frustrating attacking day, you still score 3 goals against an Aston Villa side that usually can be defensively resolute and tough to break down.
No, agreed.
And there's like net positives and negatives with this, or glaring positives and negatives that sort of battle or butt heads with each other. So I think with this one, because it worked out in the end for us, we can settle on that being more of a net positive today.
Yeah.
But you can see where perhaps in another game on a different day against a different defence, it's not as open as that. Emery invited United on with the high line, and maybe that's probably a contribution to more offsides happening if they play a high line but utilise an offside trap, and that's probably what they were aiming to do a lot of the time. But again, perhaps too open with a biggish lead, and the saying goes 2-0's a dangerous scoreline, and doing it so early in the game, you've got a long time to manage it. So if you do decide to sit back on it, that's a long time to keep things locked down and just consistent. And with teams that are not like top end, with proper class quality players, you're going to struggle. And Aston Villa struggled with that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is where I think they've still got a lot to learn. I mean, don't get me wrong, Emery's got into a position where they deserve to be in that position. And at one point, sitting second, it must have made you feel like, that's where we should be at this point.
Mm.
Man City must be looking at the same situation. Arsenal looking at the same thing.
Mm.
Emery, I think he'll go back to the drawing board with this one.
Mm.
But yeah, I can see obviously the comments about Onana. I mean, there's your problem as well, isn't it? Onana.
Yeah, I mean, Onana, we got to talk about him because I mean, as much as perhaps we sit here and say, look, he has fault with goals. The fact is he has been almost responsible for way too many goals to not get flack. Way too many goals. He single-handedly got us eliminated from a competition.
Yeah.
On his own. That was all on him. Because I mean, we scored almost an average of 3 goals in that group, in our group, but almost conceded the same amount. And most of the time, we're talking about goalkeeper Onana. So there's got to be a line that we've got to draw here and say, look, swap him out for Bayindir. But a part of me is wondering, but why is he not swapping out for Bayindir when this situation with Onana's going on? Is Bayindir that bad? Like, is he getting outshot in training?
I think it's that kind of one. But it's a case of one more game. Surely he'll change. One more game. Just got to give him that little bit more luck. It'll come good for him. But how long's that bit of string? You can only go so far. Just to answer Lucas' comment there, if you don't mind, mate. I mean, obviously, I'm on with Tony Claude tomorrow at 6 o'clock, and so yeah, time's going to be pretty limited for me, Luca, unfortunately. But yeah, send me a message anyway if need be. Sorry about that, mate. But yeah, I mean, he's been given quite a few chances, and I mean, don't get me wrong, so is Ten Hag. But when you look at it, how many more do you give him?
Well, that's probably the damning question about it, because he has played every game.
Yeah.
He has not been dropped even for rotation purposes in any other competition. Every single time we'll say, let's give him another chance, he gets given that chance, and he's not delivered. No. He hasn't delivered.
No.
And that's the thing, is it's damning when we look back on it and take us back to the summer. David De Gea is going out of contract, and everyone's fantasizing about a player like Onana because he's a ball-playing goalkeeper. He's good with the ball at his feet. And I'm like, but the problem with this team is not a goalkeeper with lack of ball-playing abilities here. It's that team concedes way too many chances, and that midfield is way too open. So if you take away a shot stopper that can command his box in a defensive scenario, you lose an entire security, security insurance. You lose like a get out of jail free card in David De Gea, who's a shot stopper, albeit that he makes mistakes. But at the same time, so did every other goalkeeper at the time. I mean, David Raya, who's at Arsenal now, even him at Brentford, he was touted to replacing David De Gea midway through that season, and I was true. But he's making mistakes as well. Like, I've seen this guy get chipped because he just goes off his line and wanders into no man's land and doesn't know where the hell he's at. So, and Aaron Ramsdale as well, touted to be a Premier League winning goalkeeper, when the pressure comes onto Arsenal, starts making howler mistakes that cost him games, cost him valuable points, kills momentum. The butterfly effect. One thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And I was saying it last summer, that I don't think goalkeepers a problem. There's so many different issues we've got to fix first. Like, we can talk about the goalkeeper later, because of course David De Gea has been here for a long time. We need to think about changing. We need to think about change, like evolutionizing, stay up to date with the game.
Of course.
But there's much more problematic issues, and I mean Mason Mount as well. What a waste of a signing!
Yeah.
Absolute waste of a signing. I mean, the guy's been pretty much on the injury table since he's got here. Played a couple games here and there, not really done anything when he has played. We spent 55 million. I would be thinking that's a complete rip off if we paid 20 and him be sat on the injury table this long. Think about how many different players so key to our team, or could have been so key to our team, just saved that 55 million pounds, and it was 10 million pounds worth of add-ons for achievements that Mason Mount's never going to get. So we don't have to worry about paying an extra 10 million ever, because that's never going to happen. Um, but to me, this goalkeeping situation, and I've got to be honest, that does have to be on Ten Hag, because he was the one that, you know, who vetoed for all of these. He's the one that said, "Yeah, I want to do this," and
Yeah.
ultimately it has kicked him straight in the bollocks. And it's like when you're walking in a autumn time in a field covered with leaves. Unfortunately, what you don't know is that there's a ton of pitchforks in there that when you step on them, you're going to get whacked in the face. And Ten Hag's walked into this field, has sort of half been told in his ear, but his sort of selective hearing tells him that he's ignored it. So he goes and walks into this field and starts stepping on all of these pitchforks, and is getting whacked in the face repeatedly with the same goalkeeping problem. And it's costing Manchester United dearly. And I think that poses an even bigger problem now, because you let a goalkeeper go for free, spend 50 million thereabouts on a
Yeah.
replacement. Now, how are you going to get 50 million to sell for him, to then spend probably near about the same amount of money to replace Anana again? So we've added more work to do in the future by creating a bigger problem than what we had before. And it stacks up. And the last thing we want to do for a new board that's set to come in is just pile on and pile on and pile on even more work, because it takes away more and more of perhaps a streamline of effort or movement to getting this team to being more successful, to killing a toxic culture.
I think this is the problem you've got, isn't it? Because you've never addressed one problem, or many problems. You're just kind of, in certain respects, just papering over the cracks and hoping that we'll see it through. We'll see the season through by just doing that, keeping in, like you said, Anana. I mean, at least with us, we do mix it up with Areola or Fabianski. At least Moyes is not afraid to make that kind of change. And if you look at it with De Gea, what you should have done at that point is, yes, you had backup keepers, but get someone in that will give him a bit more competition.
Mm.
It'll stop him from being stale, because he wasn't a bad keeper when you think about it. It's just a fact of stagnates, because you've got that same position, and in certain respects, you look at Onana. I wouldn't say it's a big price tag for a keeper, but at the same point, you've still got to do your job. And when you're making silly kind of basic mistakes, and you're still playing week in, week out, every person, or the world and his wife, can say that. Why is he still in goal? How are we doing, Henry?
Mm.
Why is he still in goal? It shouldn't be the case. When you look at, you mentioned Ramsdale. I mean, for me, the problem with Ramsdale last season is the fact that when they lost to Saliba, that's when they started making mistakes.
Mm.
And it's more, you could easily look at the keeper, but you could look at the outfield players first of all.
Yeah.
Gabriel didn't know what to do with himself, and then for Ramsdale, is what do you do? Do you basically make that? Do you come out for a goal, or do you stay on your line, and vice versa? It's a catch-22. But when you look at Onana making some schoolboy errors, some really big schoolboy errors, it's
I think all you need with a goalkeeper, if you are sort of coming into the club like Manchester United, is to understand that your personality is probably going to count for naught.
Absolutely.
You got to make a personality now
Mm.
and create yourself a character that is very dominant in that box and is very commanding figure, and not to act on indecision. Act decisively. If you get something wrong, you'll know, right, so I've reacted in this situation. And that's the thing. If you are critical of yourself and you really do sort of hamper down what it is that you get wrong, because, I mean, for God's sakes, most of the modern clubs nowadays have about 1,000 analysts and video analysts and data experts that it's built like a Formula One team.
Of course it is.
It's like a F1 garage or something like that, and it's like there's that many people who could give you all the insights you need and improve on your game. But for me, it feels like Onana's just regressed into a shell. He doesn't command anything, and it tends to be the case that even when we can sit here and say, well, it's the centre back's fault for the goal, but you can always pick out something that Onana's either doing or not doing as a contributor to avoiding the goal, to helping prevent it. Um, So for me, there's got to be some sort of reflection from Andre Onana to actually trying to do something to stop this stagnation, as you said.
Well, I'll take to that then. Maybe we've got to look at the bigger picture.
Mm,
Is it the player? Do we have to look at the manager? What is he? Is it the case of, like you mentioned, most clubs now with the sports science, the analysts, and this,
mm,
is Ten Hag one of those where I don't want all that going on there? It's my team. I'm running it this way, and have we thought of that? Could Ten Hag be the problem in the way the team? I mean, clearly today, if you look at it, if you didn't have Garnacho playing today, you're not getting them
mm.
goals. It's
Um,
pure and simple. So you could look at that side of
mm,
things. Are the players actually playing for the manager?
mm,
Um, because you look at certain games previous in the last 4 or 5 games.
mm.
To me, there's a sign that they're not exactly playing for him. So you've got to question the manager in that respect as well.
Yeah, I feel like with in terms with Onana and Ten Hag, I mean they both played well. Ten Hag managed Onana at Ajax and actually got him into a good state before he ended up getting suspended with his doping thing and was banned for a year, and then sort of revitalised his career at Inter Milan and did a good job there.
Mm.
So in terms of the quality of goalkeeper, we know that he is better than what he's doing. We know he's better. It's interesting to me that he's coming to Manchester United, and maybe in terms of not rotating or dropping, Onana is to do with a bias from Ajax that Ten Hag's like, well, I want to keep Onana playing him. I want to play him through this rough patch because I know he can be good. I think sometimes bias from managers like that can really, it's like a sacrificial lamb.
Mm.
I'm willing to sacrifice my career and being stubborn with a player I know and I want to trust in to come good to get me out of this problem. But it's is backfiring a whole hell of a lot more than it is working in your favour.
Yeah.
And as for some players, for most parts, not playing for the manager, it's annoying that the games like this happen because it takes a character and a response to a manager's half-time conversations that get a team going from being defeated, and a team that usually when we concede a goal, the heads are gone. So when in from a situation where the heads are dropped, getting at half time, and they come out and they start playing, and it's like you can't just play as though you're just switching it on. It's like a light switch with like a 3-year-old. They're playing around with
True.
it, haha, it's switching on and off and on and off again. You can't just keep doing that. So again, it's also a big part of the players in their personalities and characters. Like, why aren't you mentally consistent in response? Like, a manager can be the reason you lose a game. his message might not get through to you. But sometimes with a manager, when the dressing room's lost or they don't play for him, it happens on a more consistent basis where players don't get games like, or teams don't get a game like this where you're from a losing position to a winning position, and that you actually play decent for most of that game. And it gives off these weird vibes and messages, and it's like, but what is actually going on? Like, who's on side with this manager? You could probably say there's a few players in that dressing room that are trying to carry, the willpower of the manager, but there's the others that drag it down. So on other days, if the players aren't up for a fight, the ones that are backing the manager, the whole thing just plagues like the dressing room entirely, and everyone ends up slumping in defeat.
Mm.
Whereas you get games like this where there's more players who back the manager playing for him, and all the other ones that usually just slump in defeat actually get a little bit piped up. They find an extra gear. There's one question I've got to ask you. Your viewpoint on perhaps there being anything to do with Sir Dave Brailsford being sat in the stands for this game, that you think that these players might be thinking, well, there's someone who I'm pretty sure would be more than happy to rip up my contract if I don't start behaving and pulling my finger out. Because that's the thing. You get a new ball come in, your best mates, right, who signed you, who gave you your lucrative wages, bye-bye. Daddy's left. Daddy's gone to get the milk and he ain't coming back for you.
Yeah. No, I
Now
totally
you've got
agree
the
on that.
stepfather, your disciplinarian stepfather coming in, and he's going to beat the ever-loving shit out of you. And that's got, that's got to
true.
be, that might be in some of those players' minds. What's your take on it?
No, I think it's a great analogy of it. I mean, when you look at it today, I mean, the Nuno effect at Forest. New manager comes in, players play out of their skin.
Sick result, by the way. And Chris Wood,
yeah.
Chris Wood of all people. I mean, yeah, I know Yeti just does not like him.
I know.
Yeti's fed up and done with him. I said that Chris Wood can actually be a decent backup striker to Awonyi. He can be. And he goes and single-handedly bosses Newcastle at St. James's Park.
Well, if you want to kind of do like a Lord of the Ring thing, Chris Wood suddenly becomes an Ent and all of a sudden bangs in a hat trick. He's out of nowhere. But yeah, when you look at Lord Bradford sitting in the stands there, you've got to think as any player in that, if you catch wind that one of the top dogs is sitting up in there and they control my livelihood, my career, then yeah, you're gonna play a little bit different. Your method and your kind of way of thinking is going to be different because in certain respects you're playing for your job. So I'm making what you said there is a great point. It is a really great point. I will agree on that.
Yeah. Is it okay if you drop me a DM out of the doors?
Yeah, well, no problems. I will do, Luca. No worries.
But
yeah, because obviously it's like, I asked the question earlier on one of the other channels. Now you've got Radcliffe in, and he's going to be dealing more with the players rather than what the Glazers are doing. You're going to see. Hopefully, you're going to see, shall I say, Touchwood, four-leaf clover, rabbit's foot, and everything else. More of a change in the player, what you're bringing in, what you're going to kind of get release, and how you kind of adopt that kind of mentality of what he actually wants, because that's what you need to do to restore yourself back to the way you are.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long process, but hopefully it's going to be a process that's going to come to fruition sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's like as with you said with what players you bring in and getting the release, and for me it's the culture. And if you've got if you've got a disciplinarian manager with a very relaxed kickback, not really doing it's like a mates race or jobs for the boys kind of approach with the upper management positions, players know they can bypass a manager to get their way at the club. But if there's a no bullshit tolerance, at the club in positions of power, those players know, oh my God, this guy who's paying my wages, I'm not his friend. And he's
Yeah,
telling me, listen, I'm not your best mate. I'm not your pal. You work for me. I pay your wages and I will pay you in accordance to what I think you're worth.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
if the past 10 years are any indicator as to how much you deserve, you're not even seeing half the wages that those Aston Villa players are seeing.
true.
And and that's the thing, and it's a culture that has got to change. And with this, it is going to take some time. It is going to be a process that we're going to have to take a few windows to ship more players out that need to go, that have overstayed their welcome, and bring players in that are much more sort of, they play more with passion, and they go to a club and they feel like, this is the great Manchester United. I want to give everything for this badge, and not have people who are mercenaries. And the best part about it is that they're not going to have stupid wages, because and the thing is, wages can kill a player's ambition
Mm.
very quickly. And if the culture, right, if it stinks, you fast track that player's decline to stagnation. And that's a common thing, because players come in with good promise, they always leave having to sell them for less, let them leave for free because we can't sell them and their wages
Yeah,
are too big. And it that's the thing. Market value of every player that we sign has declined.
not being
Factually.
fun. Yeah, well, yeah, it's true, isn't it? I mean, because for me, the typical example of one of your homegrown and that is Rashford.
Mm.
You know, he's on some serious money, and he's not the player like he used to be. That's for sure. It's on the call. Maybe
Sorry,
he's back in
Mama
the room.
Fuzz.
No, that's yeah.
Mama
Don't
Fuzz.
worry. I thought it was. Thought it was.
At
No, I was
least this
saying.
time, yeah. At least
Yeah.
this time she's not coming to invade the stream, so we're okay.
I think, say, when you look at the fact of Rashford, the money he's on, and you look at his performance,
Hmm.
it doesn't really kind of justify itself. I mean, fun enough, we was talking earlier. I mean, like you said, like with the players, if you're going to move them on, I was on Yeti's channel with Bance and Jez. We were talking about them offloading players, and you consider some of them have been there
Hmm.
since BC kind of thing, and they've been there that long. How can you actually ship them off and expect money out of them, or top dollar? Because at the end of the day, and that they're not going to get that for the players. And it's the same with some of your guys that have been sitting there forever and a day. How are you going to ship them off and expect to get any money? Or as you said, just kind of like, okay, we'll take 5 million, we'll take 10 million, 11.
Hmm.
Whereas you paid maybe 30, 40, 50,000, 50 million for them, and you're going to
Hmm.
offload them for so
Hmm.
much less. It's a one thing. But
Hmm.
like you said, it's a stigma of your club because you're Man United. You should be kind of attracting the better player.
Hmm.
Um, but this is why I question, obviously, when you look at Ten Hag, it's still too much of a Ajax kind of ideology of what he brings in, what he kind of
Hmm.
signs, and it's not they're not Man United players. That's in my eyes, they're not Man United players. They're not a Man United
Hmm.
type of player that
Hmm.
you should have at your club.
Hmm. Just bringing up this comment from BT that Hoyland being celebrated when on average he scores one Premier League goal every 1,026 minutes. Our standards have slipped so low. Is in terms of Hoyland's goal scoring record in the Premier League? I know that he's only just scored his first Premier League goal today, and he came in the summer. he hasn't been that unbelievably bad. 'Cause, I mean, it's very easy to slip into seeing that a player doesn't score a huge amount of goals and say that player's the worst player the Premier League has ever seen. Easy. I mean, he's Hoyland to me is better a quality of player than say someone like a Val Veghorst. There's opportunities there that sure Hoyland can do better, and perhaps if he had have done better in various instances, he probably would have had like 5 or 6 goals, maybe even 7 goals in the Premier League by now.
Mm.
There are some big opportunities that he does miss. What's your take on Rasmus Hoyland at the moment? Do you think that it is a case that he's hasn't been terrible, but there is definitely a lot of room for improvement there?
Yeah, of course. I think it comes down to what we just mentioned then. From where the league he was playing in before, which he was more comfortable with, you come into the Premier League, and then there's obviously a different style of play, physicality,
Mm.
mentality, and has he adapted? Clearly not.
Mm.
So when you look at it like that, is he trying too hard? Yes, definitely.
Mm.
You expect, not being funny, when you see some English players, they can come into another club and before you know it, they are scoring goals just for fun.
Mm.
Hoyland, unfortunately, he's not in that situation. So, yeah, 1 goal in 1,026 minutes. You can see why they're all happy for him, and
Mm.
that's good. But there's a time and a place, I think, in certain respects. You know what I mean? And when you look at it, yes, it's his first goal. Great, celebrate it. But come on, let's get the win. Let's carry on going. Because at that stage,
Mm.
Villa were still in it, and it could have been a draw at that stage, or they could have gone on to win the game. So, yeah, great. Celebrate
I
afterwards in the
think,
change room, but celebrate only for a couple of minutes. Crack on.
yeah, and I think in terms of fan perception, I think it's looking statistically at a player, it's very easy to think of them as like, oh, no, just shit player. 1 goal for every 1,026 minutes. Nah, shit, get rid of him. At the same time, it's like you just watched a game where we come from 2-0 down, and the player who's just scored his first Premier League goal is a winning goal. So looking at the game on its as an isolated game in hindsight, you say, well, Rasmus Hoyland who actually scores that goal, if it's somebody else, if it's Anthony Martial who's playing up front, would he be a winning goal scorer, game winning goal scorer? I'm not too sure. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, it's one of
and
those, isn't it?
it's like in hindsight, it's whilst you're watching the game, it's like, yeah, great, don't over egg the pudding. There's still a game to be won, and that's kind of my thought process when we go 3-2 up, because we've done it before where we can. I think it was Galatasaray, um, most notably, where we score to go 3-1 up or something. We still end up not winning the game, and it's just like, but you have a good on advantageous position. You get into a winning position, you still let the game go. I think in hindsight, it's like as I've said with the get to a final whistle, a wave of relief just washes over you. It's just like, thank God, I get to let go of those emotions and feelings and thinking we need to hold on, we need to hold on, we need to don't lose it. Like we believe that you can do and do
Mm,
way too often. Don't lose the game.
yeah,
Don't let it slip. Um, but yeah, I think in terms of longevity, hopefully Hoyland kicks on. I would like to see, because the thing is he came in and I was probably one of the first people to critique the signing, because I was like, you're signing this player who's only scored like 9 goals competitively um, for Atalanta last season, and you're sticking such a big price tag on him. I'm looking at guys like John Merton, I'm like, but why are you putting him there as the star man? If he comes in as the backup to a genuinely good signing,
mm,
you can sit there and have a different viewpoint on it and say, well, let's see how well he does in transitioning into the Premier League and having someone to feed off of, someone to actually grow and shape his game based off of. But that never happened, and he's essentially come in, and the only player he's really got to grow off of is bloody Anthony Martial, who's been here way too long and then sits half the time on an injury table. So it's like, well, of course, Rasmus Højlund, he's basically got to do, at his age, he's got to do what most players in their mid-20s to late-20s struggle to do, right? To go from another league into the Premier League and actually bring those numbers over or to improve on those numbers. Some players can do it, but it's not very often.
No.
I mean, the amount of times we've seen players come from other leagues, and strikers more specifically, and absolutely belly flop so hard into the ground that they've ended up in China. It's just probably another one of those cases. So fingers crossed. We've got too many Bruce Forsyth fans. Oh, they do well? Didn't they do well? Do you know what, Big T? Every time we win a game, I'll just say that, just to spite it.
See, our classic one was, because like you said with him, was Sebastian Haller. There was so much riding on him, but Moyes' system just didn't suit the player, and then we sell him for less, and he started banging in goals again.
What about Skamaka?
And same thing there. When you look at that as well, two players where Moyes played his way, didn't adapt to the player style, and both struggled. Both got criticised because it's a case of like, they're crap, they can't score goals. But then they go to another league, and then before you know it, there they are bagging in goals. And Haller done it with two teams, Ajax as well as Dortmund. So it puts it down to how the manager plays that player.
Absolutely. BT says, I'll watch Elanga thinking Anthony, why? Well, I'll tell you what, Anthony Elanga, keeping a game quite simple, is actually quite I don't know about efficient. I just think in certain things that a winger can do, if you've got pace, is burn it. Burn that pace, because just being super quick but using your pace well is an absolute nightmare for a lot of teams. And if you play a high line, I mean, Newcastle, they'll push their defensive line up. If there's a pacey winger that's just relentless, I'm sorry, but Trippier, Sven Botman, Shah, and Dan Burn, that's pretty much Newcastle's first choice back line. And they got ran ragged at times in that game. Like that's saying something. And if Anthony has got some pace or a little bit of ability about him, sometimes just simplify your game as opposed to try and be, this skillful player who does some step overs, some rainbow flicks, and then passes it about 50 yards back to Wan-Bissaka or to Varane or whoever it is sat in defence. It's like, of course, with price tags, we talk about price tags all day, because at the same time of saying, yeah, no, he's not worth that, we had idiots in our boardroom negotiating and overpaying every single transfer in the past decade or so. So, of course, there's that element to it. But Anthony, even if you were bought for 30 million, what we're seeing from Anthony is not 30 million pounds. It isn't 30 million pounds. It's almost. I mean, we let Elanga go for 15 mil. Does Anthony Elanga look like a 15 million pound player, or does he look closer to something like a 30 mil? And Nottingham Forest, it is only half a season. He's got another half of the season to show just exactly what he's got in his locker, to grow into that setup, and he can do it for a second season and go another season after that, or however long it is that he's at that club. Maybe he just goes, superstar, and somebody else of a bigger club actually come in for him and say, actually, you're pretty well developed now. Now we're going to sign you. And it's like, but we're stuck with Anthony, who's still being a fidget spinner in the corner of Old Trafford. Meanwhile, Anthony Alanga goes from a club reject to relevancy. That can't be ignored, and that's the thing. I'm seeing Anthony do this and Alanga do that. Like they're going past each other.
Passing.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think of Anthony Alanga?
I like him. I say when he first came on the scene and that, he looked like he was a good homegrown talent and a boy come good kind of. But obviously he just didn't fit in with the manager's plans. But Cooper took him on at Forest, and yeah, he shone. I think he got injured, and he's back in it again. Whereas Anthony, yeah, enough said. I don't need to say any more on that one because
I think there's a. I got to be honest. I think maybe for as much as I would have, I wanted Ten Hag to come in to begin with, my perception on how football is nowadays has seemingly sort of gone backwards to more of a time where it's like I look at managers try and complicate football with systems and formations and players doing very specific tasks and system players, and how perhaps Anthony is not fit for any system football on the planet. He is probably just literally just from grassroots or favela roots, literally just a wild player, just a raw player. He's not fitting in. Like he hasn't got, say, a technical ability to pull off tactical instructions from any manager of a higher level. If he goes to a team where it's just like, well, go and express yourself. Spend the next, spend most of your training sessions working on, the ways in which you can creatively be a player, and I'll let you go and express yourself on a football pitch, because he would do that at Ajax. He was given more freedom to do that, and he was beating players quite well, running it up on the bylines, and when the space isn't there, he'd literally work around you like he's in a telephone box, like Lionel Messi used to. To quote, I've forgotten what his Scottish commentator, the one that just has orgasms every time he commentates on Messi, and it's like. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons why perhaps Anthony has had such a massive fall from any recognised grace, that he's not fit for a system team. So you sort of look at it and think, but if Ten Hag was going to be playing a different way or try to impose a system that's not what he used at Ajax, Anthony's got to become a player that he isn't. So we're probably seeing a player that Anthony isn't, and it's not good and it's not working, but there's no alternatives for Anthony. So it might be the case that Anthony, to actually see a better version of Anthony, is he actually goes to a different club where it's less instruction and more freedom to the player.
It's a good point, but I think, like I said, it goes back to Ten Hag. What is he? Is his management skills questionable? Is he actually kind of restricting with the information he's given to Anthony? Is Anthony doing too much? We always know that players like to showboat every now and then, but you don't do it for 90 minutes. And unfortunately, with Anthony, that's what you get. And he's been found out pretty early. But then, as a manager, if you've bought a player and you know the player, you've got to realise that you've also got to adapt. It's not, you're not in the Dutch league anymore. You're in the Prem, and it's a different style. So your method's got to change. The player's got to change in certain respects as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, if he's not a Man United player, then he's got to be shipped out, because no matter what he does, he's not gonna. If he's not gonna show any improvement, then he's just basically a lost cause for you guys, and yeah, you need to cash out and move on.
Yeah, surplus to requirements, but again, it goes back to having overpaid so considerably for him. Yeah, you're going to have to take the hit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's going to come in the form of another board or a different board. They're going to be sitting there thinking, well, Jesus Christ, all the finances, look at how much money this club has spent, but look how much return we're going to get. Absolutely nothing. Barely even a couple of grains of sand.
Because
Maybe.
sorry, mate, I was going to say, Radford's looking after the players and development, isn't he? Is that what he's
Well,
been
it's
brought in
the
for?
sport. It's the sporting control that he wants his ownership to have, but then he's going to have a full set board, group to operate everything in a football sense. So that goes right the way down to academy as well. So that's the men's, all the levels of the academy team for men's and the women's team. So everything right the way across the board for sporting. And supposedly in that deal, someone like a Joel Glazer or Avram Glazer can't stick their nose in and say, I don't think you should sign that player because I don't rate him. That apparently that can't happen anymore. So it's solely a professional opinion that's deciding who we sign and who we don't sign, and that's what apparently is being reported. So I mean, again, it might be something that gets reported, and then what gets reported doesn't actually happen.
Yeah,
So
of course.
you got, I think it's like trying to operate a minefield and just praying that you don't step on a landmine. But Otfers and Tony Big Up can't actually save Ten Hag. Well, I mean, he's the most impactful player. He had a goal ruled out as well, so he could have had a hat trick today, Garnacho. And it's been a while since we've had a player last score a hat trick, so that would have been something. And I ripped it up today, absolutely, including Chris Wood. I mean, Jesus Christ, Chris Wood, hat trick goal scorer. Hey, Arsenal fans, if you ever want to figure out how to go beat Newcastle at St James's Park, go buy Chris Wood's pending book release. Read and how to score against Newcastle. Tony, will you be doing a watch along for the Arsenal v West Ham game on your channel?
I may consider doing that actually, because I say I'm going to go on with Tony Claw, do a preview game, hopefully at 6 o'clock tomorrow. And then obviously, yeah, I look forward to doing it if I can. Yeah, I'll look to do it if I can. Get it all set up and that as long as time allows me. So yes, but I'll put it on the usual YouTube business.
We play better with Berghorst. We play better with Berghorst in the team than we do with Hoyland. But is that really? I mean, we play better with Berghorst in the team, but just in general, Man United were playing better last season anyway. With Berghorst in the team, with Berghorst out of the team, United were playing better by default. The whole team is just shit this season. So even with Berghorst was there, it wouldn't make a difference because it would still be shit with Berghorst. It would still be shit with Hoyland. It's like it's just 50 shades of shit. Big up Hot
Big up,
Fuzz.
Taib.
Big up Tired, man. When Chris Wood is outscoring you, you know it's time to hang up your boots. Can you imagine if Hoyland actually retires before Chris Wood? Chris Wood just seems like one of them players that just ends up playing until like he's 50. It's like the bloke in the Japanese league or something where he just keeps getting 1 year extensions to his contract and he's still playing at like the age of 50. And you're like, or like 56 or something. Like, how? How? Wow, what a game. What a comeback. Absolutely keeping it real, Chelsea. Big ups to you, man. And he chatted in your stream and he's come to chat in mine. So big ups to man.
Big up. Big up.
So you're saying he needs to play in a shit league because now he gets marked he's rubbish? Not really. I mean, what I've said is that the system that he's playing is like a player has to change. And to be honest, where I've used Anthony as an example of this, don't you, early doors, feel like the standard of football by individual quality has dropped? Because everyone's trying to do, perfect the 5 yard pass, guys. Like a goalkeeper needing to play out from the back and not make mistakes. I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah,
Goalkeeper's meant to stop shots.
there is that problem. I mean, the fun I did mention it a couple of days ago on a stream. It's the fact of how many teams this day and age play with two strikers up top. You always find it's the same kind of format. We'll either play with inverted wingers, we'll either play with a false number 9. We don't look to go at all out attack all the time now. It's like a standardized package, right? Right, you play that, this team plays it, we play it, we play it. No one's kind of like saying, right, I'm going to just change up a little bit. So when you look at something like that, yeah, your comment it's got a lot of relevance behind it, because sometimes it becomes too boring, because full well they're going to receive the ball. He's going to knock it out wide. Player goes down the line. He's either going to cut in or he's going to deliver the ball in. It's going to get lost, comes back again. Defense pick it up, and we're seeing the same repetitive football being played all the time. Or with certain teams, it's just a case of we go forwards, we bring it back. We knock it to the side, we bring it back. We knock it to the side, we bring it back. We go back, we go back. We go to the side, we go back. It just becomes too monotonous.
And I think I've got a question / statement or something that I think solves this comment altogether. If Ronaldinho, prime Ronaldinho, was dropped in his prime into modern day football, would he ever been as great as he was back then?
The problem there, the problem I see, shall I say, is probably the best way to word it, is the fact of that boy, he had natural talent. Yeah, and when you look at something like that statement you dropped there, you then, in certain respects, you take that individuality away from the player, because you then got to standardise him in with the type of football you play now. So you lose that kind of natural raw talent, because you expect the player to play that way, whereas the players wanting to do a lot more. And I suppose if you look at it, maybe, and I say a big maybe, so don't hold me to that part of us, that's what Anthony's probably doing. He feels like he's being stifled because he wants to show a lot more, but because of the way the system is, he has to play this particular way. And he's not just the only one. There's several players I think have this exactly the same kind of hold back, because they want to show a lot more, but they know they can't, because if they do, they're off the pitch and sitting on the subs bench warming up with the others. That's the best way I can word it.
Because I thought about that question / statement is because where, say, a player like Ronaldinho, where you look back at his career and you see the way in which he had natural ability, raw talent, and it was just ridiculous. Like to me, he personified proper samba Brazilian football, like proper, like futsal, five-a-side type football. I mean, that's the kind of background he somewhat came from. If you dropped him in the modern game today, or before his prime, say, he would never really have been allowed to go into a game in the modern day in like the Premier League or La Liga or something like, well, maybe more so Liga, but the Premier League, and be given the freedom to go and just try and express himself. Because I think if he has like a game where a few things go wrong, that manager's probably telling, right, okay, if you do that again, you're not playing ever again. So Ronaldinho has to start simplifying his game. The genius starts to fade away. And a couple of other examples for modern day players that I can probably bring up as well. And I think the Gunner said it on Saeed's channel. Guys like Martinelli started at Arsenal ripping it up. The guy's frustrating to watch now. Luis Diaz at Liverpool. Guy was mad, like low center of gravity, great acceleration, twisting and turning. Like the guy literally took fidget spinner and made it deadly. He stuck spikes on the end of that shit. and now it's like Luis Diaz looks like he's getting more and more like a one-dimensional player.
There's only really one thing you expect him to do on a football pitch, and it becomes readable. There is a thing that I feel like players that have that edge to them, where they have that very skillful style, it's getting coached out of them way too often. And I think sometimes you need a player that has that ability to have a go at unleashing that ability to perhaps bet to the betterment of the team in the moment. But I feel like there's not enough chances, say, given to a player to actually progress that side of their game. It's just constant regression in that until they get to a point where it's like, how good can you keep the ball on the wing, but without dribbling into the box?
You've hit a good thing there, because I think if you look at it, it ain't just just one player. I think it's how football's becoming now, and that's why, in certain respects, you hear it quite often being said that football has become boring. Big up Jermaine, good seeing you. Merry Christmas to you as well, mate. I think this is the problem. It's football is kind of becoming boring. You can see, as on a commercial level, it's all about making the pound and pence and what we take over the counter. And that's why we don't see so many youngsters coming through the game now. We'll either you're buying a player that's already established, or you're buying from a foreign country, and you expect them to come over to here and hit the ground running. And because of the way the system has changed, and it's just like a standardised, here's the instruction booklet, we play it like this and no other way. And it restricts a lot of football. So I think, that's why a lot of people, I think, are switching off from watching football these days, because it's a case of it's too standardised, it's too boring.
There's one advert I got a reference. I don't know if I've referenced it once before already on a stream, and it's the one about it's around the time of the 2014 World Cup, the cartoon advert, where they had all the cartoon characters Nike had, where it's like they've got to risk it all, and football, they all get replaced by all the robots and stuff. So I feel like football's starting to get a little bit like that advert now. They want too much of the perfection. Let's take the natural and the chancing, the ability, like Zlatan Ibrahimovic doing an overhead kick. Oh, let's ridicule him because it has a very high chance percentage of failing. But then you look at a Garnacho doing it in a game, 3 minutes in, and it's one of the best goals you've ever seen. And it's like, you kill that magic if you coach it out of a player to take away that edge to go and pull something out of the hat. And if you kill that side of the game, it gets too boring. Players, I think, sort of feel like, well, I lose a bit of the passion to play it as well, because money's one thing, it can kill your motivation. But if you're playing just 5-yard passes for a whole 90 minutes, you don't feel that same magic as a player. You don't feel very special. If you get to finish a game, go home, stick up the highlight reel, and finds like players clipped you up like about 50 times in a game where you've absolutely just broken players' ankles by sending them the wrong way, sending them to chippies. And it's like, I mean, that kill. Like, if I'm a player and I don't have that, or if I used to have it, like I'd want to go back to that. I'd love to go back to that. But
it's like it's been coached out of you. I mean, it's, I suppose, if the chalk and cheese of things, look at the Sheffield United Luton game today. Now, that personifies the old school kind of type of football, slugging it out, trying to get a result, and at the last minute you get the winner. Whereas you're saying with the top teams, it's more technical based. That pass has got to be precise. You've got to make sure that you put the right amount of weight through the pass as you make contact with the ball. It's got to hit a certain area on the boot to make sure that the pass is going to go to that player. If it hits anywhere else, it's not going to make the play. So here comes big up Stephanie. How we doing? It's one of those, isn't it? And unfortunately, it's like I said, it's where football's coming now. And what's this here? Yeah, if I was coach, yeah,
And that's
it's
the
one of
thing.
those.
That's another thing is a player's aggression. It's like if it was modern day, I remember one very significant clip that you know it's funny to think about is when there's a drop ball after I think Rooney had an initial challenge that he was frustrated about, and it cited an injury. I think they had to do a substitution. The referee did a drop ball. It was him and another player. So referee drops the ball. Rooney's almost kicked the ball out of the referee's hand and almost swiped his studs across the other player. The other player sort of half kicks the ball in front of him, and then Rooney goes and absolutely classes it.
Classes it, yeah.
A second time, the referee's just like, okay, now stop. I mean, it's things like that, and that persona that made a big part of Rooney's career, because if he didn't have that to tap into, it's all the little things about a player that can make it up into something special. And in the modern game, would Rooney be like? Would he be allowed to do even half the stuff he used to do?
Well, no, that's just as many players. I mean, we had Julian Dix. He would, not only would he kick you off the pitch and that, he'll kick you into row Z. Regardless of that, it's one of those. You put a challenge in, and yeah, I think it is big up. Yeah, I think this is the problem. It is been taken out of the game. I mean, even unfortunately, I see it at Sunday football level as well. Grassroots. You get referees blowing up for the stupidest things, and it's like, hold on, it's supposed to be a contact sport. What you can't brush up against a player to get the ball off of him. You can't breathe on a player anymore to win the ball off of him. It's not exactly a gentleman's football. Now, do you mind, dear chap, if I can just take this ball for your foot and I can go on and score a goal? It's not that way. It's a case of like, I'm going to make sure I'm going to pole axe you to the other side of the pitch, and I'm going to get, regardless if you're there or not, I'm getting that ball. But
That's
as
another.
you said, yeah,
There's
you
another
see people.
example.
It's been taken out of the game with certain players. They don't like it. I mean, well, but if you look at the Arsenal team when they played Luton, they didn't like being kicked all over the park. They're going to play us on Thursday. We've got some physical players in there. They're not going to match up to that.
And I'll tell you what, the modern day Arsenal, everyone's scared about a team that is very physical. The Arsenal team of old that won all the trophies, that team was hella physical.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really physical. But they also had the ability. So you go to a place like Kenilworth Road and you're ready to sink your teeth into it. You're like, oh yeah, let's have a good game.
No, exactly. I mean, it's a great comment there by Si. I'll give it that. That's a great comment.
Just another thing as well with Wayne Rooney. There's another clip that I remember watching him, where he's chasing after a referee, screaming profanities at him, and he overtakes a referee to score a 40-yard screamer, and he's not even happy. He's just like, he goes back to effing and blinding at the referee. I'm like, bro, if that was Michael Oliver and Rooney was chasing after him, he would have stopped the play despite it being about a cross away from actually scoring a goal. He would have just gone, right, red card. You hurt my feelings. Get off the pitch. Like, it's
well, yeah,
it's
I mean, this day and age, unfortunately, you look at certain referees, it's all about them, isn't it? It's not about the game itself.
main character syndrome, I like to call it.
Yeah, definitely.
Mike D, Michael Oliver, two.
We look at your game today. The Lions, with the Garnaccio going there, the pair of them couldn't exactly decide who had done what. Was he offside or not? They go to VAR. There's a little bit of confusion there, and then before you know it, it's ruled out. But the Lions been in a position to clearly must see that. Oh yeah, he's 5 yards off already. But now you got to let them play the ball first of all, give them the opportunity to score the goal, and then turn and say, "I'm sorry, but it was offside already." It's that element that's kind of important to the game, as much as they want the game to play on. Even for the outsider or for the fan watching the game, and that is frustrating. That's basically because you think your team has just put yourself ahead, or you've drawn level, but then you get hold on, what's going on now? And everyone's looking around. The players are looking around. And it's that decision making. We were saying that when we was watching the game, it's a case of how hard is it to make that decision? It's clear as day. You can see it clearly. He's offside, but
I blame the statisticians. They made it about the numbers and probabilities, not heart, passion, and off the cuff football intelligence. And that's the thing is statisticians and I think the fans sort of catching on to this and sort of this analytical aspect of the game that I think has changed the perception on fan opinion about what football is, where people used to just sort of, it used to be very almost black and white in how people used to perceive the game, because you loved the game and you loved playing it and you loved watching it equally. Like that, you can't, it's very rare to almost get that now, because you think about a game, you think, well, that was a good game, those players were really good. Somebody will come up with a stat that says that this player did not do this and that, and that he had a certain percentage of things in this game which proves to you and to the rest of the world this player is shit. But I watched him actually do good. Like I was entertained by that player on the day. Does that not hold more weight with me and you as spectators than worrying about how many times Erdegaard looks at another human being on a big patch of grass? How about, is Erdegaard like skinning people alive? Is he jinking players, body fainting to the other side and smashing a weak foot shot into top bins? Is he doing that? No, but apparently the guy's world class if he looks at players more on average than somebody who doesn't. I mean, modern day football, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's only going to get worse as well, because what do you know? The big money makers, they feed into that. They see what the fans are saying, and they go, "Oh yeah, let's milk that some more." So it starts to go tenfold for me. You can't give marks for that sort of stuff, so it doesn't fit with their models of data. 100%. Man U, he's a strange one, isn't he? Manchester United is really strange, really fucking weird. I'd stay away from him. If you see him in the street, cross it immediately or go the other way. In character syndrome, I like that. It feels like it. And most notably with Mike Dean, the amount of times that you could see highlights of him, like the time when Tottenham Hotspur scored the goal, and he's just there going, yeah, running back to the halfway line. Like, fam, what is a referee doing that for? Now, what? Typical Mike Dean.
Lifted his black shirt up and then getting the old badge and kissing it.
It's like, my accumulators have come home to roost. Yes. It's because I want to see their mum, want their mum to see them on the telly. I swear it was Goldbridge was saying that when Delo got sent off. It's bloody. Oh, my mum cuts his hair. Your mum cuts my hair and stuff like. I don't know what he was going on about with Michael Oliver, who gets his hair cut by his mum. I get my hair cut by mum. There's nothing wrong with that, mate. Like, sometimes they do a good job. To be fair, only Arsenal fans think Erdegaard is world class.
Absolutely. Delusional at his finest.
Yes, Fuzz, it's not about passing the eye test anymore. Then you have a chat with the bloke. He's sound, so you sign him. Now it's stats, heat maps, tackle success percentage, not that he clattered a guy. And that's the thing with the centre backs nowadays, is somewhere, somehow, statisticians will probably bring up as about 5,000 reasons as to why to sign Harry Maguire. You look at it like this: Arsenal fans, right now they're not linked to a player like Harry Maguire. They're not linked to him, so they all say, he's shit, he's really crap. No, what a waste, man. Guy gets linked to Arsenal. Watch the pro-Maguire agenda come out in full force. Look at the stats. Look at this. Look at his heading percentage. Look at this. Oh, he'd be really sick in this team. It's like, I can't. I just can't. I can't. But yeah, they should all be sacked. Why are they still reffing games? What? Well, I mean, VAR is probably one of the biggest reasons why we want referees sacked now. It's like it's the technology that I think it's such a shame, because VAR could have been the thing that perfected what refereeing was like before VAR. It's actually sent it the other way. And because it's become worse and it's less efficient for the game, it almost does football a better service if it wasn't there at all. Now, I think with the offside technology and goal line technology, things like that, that's decent. That's like that's normal. It's like the Premier League, for example, offside technology in the Premier League sucks. There's other competition like Champions League, the offside technology in that, where it draws a wall, it drops a wall, and it zooms in to where all both the defending player and attacking player's body, their limbs are. Draws it in line, drops a wall right there to where the most furthest legal part of the defender is, and you can see how much of the legal part of the attacker is actually through that wall, and then you can say, well, that 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 just, we don't have to think about, oh, well, it is offside, it isn't offside. It's factual. It's right there, and you can see it, and you could see it like that.
Exactly. That's the difference.
But
Just want to add on to that. Just saying goodbye to Mama Flossie. She's out. Her bed is calling. She's saying good night. Night, Mama Flossie.
Thanks for tuning in.
Well, this season, if you look at VAR, in my eyes, it's worse than it was from compared to last season. And not being funny, if you look at today's game, I think that's the first time I've seen in months they've actually drawn a line on the pitch for the offside decision. But other than that, you haven't this season. I mean, the typical one was the Arsenal one with the ball allegedly going out of touch, and when they did show you it, it was at a completely different angle to what you normally would see it. So it comes down to the system works. The technology doesn't fail that badly. It's down to human error more than anything else, and we hear that in the comments what they're saying. But when you look at, like, for instance, the typical one was the Man City game when the ball got played through to Grealish and he goes through and then they pull it back, and then it's a case of it was a genuine mistake, and we're all supposed to sit around and say, no problems at all. Genuine mistake, of course. We'll let you off on that one. But for the likes of, teams down at the bottom, teams at the top, that makes the difference of being relegated or winning the league. A decision like that.
It's like Brighton last season had like 3 or 4 apology letters from VAR. It's like, but that's 3 or 4 games that we could have been. Let's say they lost all of those games, and I think they did. That's 12 points.
It's a big thing, isn't it? It's a big difference
12 points difference. You could
massive
be
thing
off worse, and that's the thing. If you are a bottom of the table team, 12 points is so significant between being in the relegation zone and out of it, and your feet are dry. So with VAR and officiating the way it is, if you have to apologize for anything, you are doing something so cataclysmically wrong.
Well, you've just admitted you are wrong, haven't you? If you're doing letters like that, you're basically saying that you were wrong, and if we give you this letter, there's a £5 coffee voucher in there as well, and that just to kind of make you feel happy. Here you go. We're so sorry for it. How is that going to go down?
We'll give you a full trip, all expenses paid trip to Burger King.
Yeah.
All of you and all the players that played in that game.
Yeah, but make sure you look at the actual kind of end of date. We've given you the one that's run out by a month, but still take it anyway. Our apologies.
Tell you what, with I know that a lot of the conversation about refereeing nowadays, or refereeing just in general, a lot of referee perceptions on things. It's all a subjective case. I think if a referee has to apologise for something, it's no longer subjective. And
100%.
the thing is that when the game is solely officiated by a perspective of subjectivity, that's nothing to apologise for. That is a referee sticking by what he genuinely believes and what he's seen and basing a decision off of that. We can sit after the game and say, well, that's right or that's wrong. At least that's a natural decision made by an official that at that moment of the game felt like that was the right call to make with the
Yeah.
rules in mind. Now it's people talking about, well, I don't know what the rules are anymore. That's because there's like, when you go to the rules page of the official or the officiating law, you don't just get one part in like a 3-line paragraph anymore. It's just about 5,000 pages of the way in which this rule differs for different situations. And it's like the handball rules. Who knows what the live handball rules are? Because they might have been different from last week. They might be different this week. We don't know until we see it enacted to then to speculate. Did it change? Has it changed? Because who knows? Because they don't have to tell us anything. They don't have to tell us, oh, there's been a rule change. They could do that without saying, without muttering a word, and no one would actually have known because they might be testing it. They might be doing a pilot of it in a few games and then deciding if it works at the end of the season. Oh, official rule change, guys. And that's the thing. They might be doing some games where they test different rules out, but they don't tell anybody because if they did say, everyone would be absolute. There'll be riots. There'll be absolute riots. It's just like, well, the reason why this team lost because they got screwed out of a decision. Well, it's not actually because they got screwed. It's because we actually went with different rules. Where with every other team that played that weekend, the rules were normal for them, but it was different for this game because we want to figure out if there is a way in which we could change this game. And that's the thing. If you're able to practice it, it's like they probably think, well, it gives us a better chance because that's them training for those new rules. But that's horrendous. That'd be horrendous to do.
Yeah, because that's where it comes to the inconsistency, isn't it? I think there was one a couple of weeks back. You saw one decision was given, and then the same thing happened, I think, the week after, and it wasn't given. So it comes down to the perception of the referees. One will say that, okay, if it hits me here, it's handball. But if it's up here, it's no problems at all. Like that, when you look at Matty Cash with the Arsenal game, was it handball or wasn't it? In theory, if you look at the rules, it wasn't handball. But the fact that Havertz hits it twice with his hand before he scores.
Or is that when Erdegaard was playing prime Michael Jordan basketball on a football pitch?
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, hold on a second, but how is that not handball? It's like, I mean, I'm sure if you do a basketball dribble on a football pitch, it's like, what's different from him going down to the other end and doing a hoop shot, just tossing over the goalkeeper? Well, I mean, what's the difference? They're both, the ball is being controlled and dictated with the hand. What rule dictates? And because it's on a replay, the referee and VAR can literally just bring it up and say, well, that's referee, pause the game, just bring it back to that point there because Erdegaard has just basketball dribbled the ball on a football pitch. Like, just do it as a set piece free kick from that position. And it would be instant. It'd just be in the referee's ear. Like,
of course.
We've seen that happen. Just bring it back to that. And
but did you notice though on that one, Hot Fuzz, and that you didn't hear any kind of comments from the manager? Funny enough. Whereas before, when it's the other way around, just saying big up to Dave there, old school gunner.
It's a fucking disgrace, guys.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? It goes both ways. But yeah, I don't set out for work. Turned 44 yesterday.
Oh well, happy birthday!
Happy birthday, mate!
Happy belated birthday! And happy Christmas as well. I mean, Jesus, that's isn't that Christmas Day? Christmas Day birthday. Seeing Arsenal fans try to justify Odegaard violating that football with his hands was funny. I just see he's just writing Arsenal.
Arsenal,
Might as
yeah.
Might as well be. They're watching a different sport to us. But anyway, so I'll probably wrap up the show there because we are about 3 minutes away from midnight. I best not make it the the Tuesday and Wednesday stream. But big ups to everybody in the chat. Thank you very much for tuning in. Really appreciate the love and support. We're up to 10 likes on the stream. If we can hit any higher than that, that would be fantastic. But that's a stream target hit. And of course, big ups to Early Doors Football TV for joining me on Match Reaction.
You're welcome, mate, and big up to yourself as well, mate. And make sure you guys subscribe to this young man to my left, right, centre, ran in circles, wherever he is. Hot Fuzz 44, make sure you subscribe to this guy as well. Great content and always a pleasure being on his channel.
And likewise as well, I mean, make sure you also subscribe to Early Doors Football TV as well. West Ham content creator. Quite a few bits of content coming up for games. If you'd like to share with the chat what you have got coming up on your channel.
Well, obviously, I'm going to try and do the Arsenal game. And then, obviously, for next year, I'll be looking to do a lot more collab work. And, a few other things in the pipeline, which are a little bit different from others. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Lovely stuff. Anyways, that's it from us for tonight. Once again, thank you very much for everybody tuning in. Big ups to the channel regulars, and we'll be back again very soon. No knowledge as to when precisely, because I don't operate my YouTube by schedule, because there's nothing in my life that runs to schedule. So it's literally, unlike the Joker, do I look like a guy that has a plan? I just do. I just do. So
sorry, I'll just see the great comment from Yeti.
Well, my stream plans are like they're being tossed, so I guess you could call me a stream tosser. So there's probably some truth to that. But big ups, Yeti. But
don't forget to subscribe to that geezer as well. You know, that long hair twat, and obviously old school gunner as well. And don't forget for that guys, Nat, and obviously kudos and all the others in the great chat as well.
Yeah, and keeping it real Chelsea as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
AFC always. Luca AFC as well. All of these guys. But that's it for us tonight. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one. Ciao for now.
Take care.